Sunday, July 16, 1543. The time? Early evening. A Portuguese trading ship, blown off course by a typhoon, drifts toward the southern island of Tanegashima in Japan. This chance encounter marks the first known arrival of Europeans in the Japanese archipelago and introduces Japan to something revolutionary: firearms. But this is no ordinary trade deal. The Portuguese sailors soon discover that Japan, while geographically isolated, has developed a culture as intricate and refined as any in Europe or Asia. From the towering castles of feudal lords to the Zen gardens of Kyoto, Japan's identity is deeply tied to its geography. Mountainous terrain, fertile valleys, and a surrounding ocean that has both isolated and connected it to the wider world. How did Japan's geography shape its art, traditions, and way of life? Why did isolation lead to such a rich and unique culture? And how did this island nation balance isolation with bursts of cultural exchange? Stay with us as we uncover how Japan's unique geography gave rise to one of the most distinctive and enduring cultures in human history. The archipelago of isolation and connection. Japan is a country defined by its geography. Comprising over 6,800 islands, the Japanese archipelago stretches across the Pacific Ocean like a curved ribbon. Its four main islands, Honshu, Hokkaido, Kyushu, and Shikoku, are surrounded by smaller islands that make up one of the most geologically diverse regions in the world. But Japan's geography isn't just a collection of islands. It's a nation of contrasts: towering mountains, lush valleys, rugged coastlines, and fertile plains. Around 70% of the land is mountainous, pushing most of the population toward narrow coastal plains, where agriculture and urban life flourish. This limited arable land has historically forced the Japanese people to innovate, adapt, and make the most of their resources. The ocean as a barrier and a bridge. The surrounding ocean has played a dual role in shaping Japan's culture. On the one hand, it acted as a natural barrier, keeping foreign invaders at bay and allowing the country to develop in relative isolation. This geographic isolation gave Japan the time and space to cultivate its unique traditions, from the intricate tea ceremony to the art of bonsai and ikebana. On the other hand, the ocean also served as a bridge, connecting Japan to the outside world during key moments in history. The early trade routes with China and Korea brought new ideas, religions, and technologies, including Buddhism, Confucian philosophy, and the art of silk weaving. These cultural imports blended with Japan's indigenous practices to create something entirely unique. Mountains as guardians of tradition. The rugged terrain of Japan's interior also played a vital role. The mountains acted as natural barriers, dividing communities and fostering regional diversity. Each valley or isolated plain developed its own dialects, customs, and festivals, many of which still exist today. These mountains weren't just physical barriers, they were also spiritual ones. Japan's mountains became sacred spaces, inspiring Shinto beliefs that saw them as homes of kami, or spirits. From Mount Fuji to the misty peaks of the Japanese Alps, these landscapes became central to Japanese art, literature, and religion. Natural disasters as catalysts for resilience. Japan's geography has also exposed it to frequent natural disasters, from earthquakes to typhoons and volcanic eruptions. These challenges have profoundly influenced Japanese culture, fostering a deep respect for nature's power and impermanence. This is reflected in traditional art forms like haiku and ukiyo-e, which often celebrate fleeting moments and the beauty of nature. As we move forward, we'll explore how Japan's geography didn't just shape its traditions and worldview, it also played a pivotal role in its political and economic development. How did this island nation manage to protect its sovereignty while absorbing influences from powerful neighbors like China and Korea? A shield of isolation and strategic adaptation. Japan's geography has always been its greatest shield, protecting the nation from outside threats while allowing its culture to flourish in relative isolation. The surrounding ocean acted as a moat, shielding Japan from many of the invasions that plagued mainland Asia. But Japan's location also forced its people to develop a delicate balance between embracing cultural exchange and maintaining autonomy. The failed Mongol invasions. One of the most dramatic examples of Japan's geographic advantage occurred in the 13th century. Kublai Khan, the Mongol emperor who had conquered much of Eurasia, turned his sights to Japan. Twice, in 1274 and 1281, the Mongols launched massive invasion fleets. On both occasions, however, the ocean became Japan's unexpected ally. The Japanese called it the kamikaze, or divine wind, a typhoon that destroyed much of the Mongol fleet before it could land. While the storms alone didn't ensure victory, they helped Japan maintain its sovereignty and solidified the belief that the country was divinely protected by its geography. Borrowing from neighbors on Japan's terms. Despite its isolation, Japan was never completely cut off from the outside world. Its proximity to China and Korea allowed for the exchange of ideas, goods, and technologies. In the 6th century, Buddhism arrived in Japan via Korea, profoundly influencing Japanese spirituality and culture. Yet what made Japan unique was its selective adaptation of foreign influences. Instead of adopting foreign practices wholesale, the Japanese modified them to fit their own needs and traditions. Chinese Confucianism, for example, became a key part of Japan's feudal system, but it was blended with existing Shinto and indigenous customs. This process of cultural adaptation is perhaps best exemplified by the creation of kana, Japan's phonetic writing system. While Japan borrowed Chinese characters for its written language, it developed kana to suit its spoken language, creating a uniquely Japanese literary tradition. The Tokugawa isolation policy. In 1603, under the Tokugawa shogunate, Japan took its isolationist tendencies to the extreme. The policy of sakoku, closed country, restricted foreign trade to a single port in Nagasaki, where only the Dutch and Chinese were permitted limited access. While this policy limited external threats and preserved Japan's cultural identity, it also fostered an era of incredible internal growth. During this period, Japan refined its arts, from kabuki theater to the tea ceremony, and developed a strong national identity that would later prove crucial in its modernization. But isolation couldn't last forever. In the 19th century, Japan's geography would again take center stage as the nation faced the pressures of global imperialism. How did Japan manage to modernize so rapidly while maintaining its cultural uniqueness in the face of Western influence? The geography of modernization and expansion. In 1853, Japan's isolation was shattered by the arrival of U.S. Commodore Matthew Perry's black ships, demanding that the country open its ports to trade. This marked the beginning of Japan's dramatic transformation into a modern, industrialized nation, a transformation deeply influenced by its geography. The role of geography in the Meiji Restoration? Japan's response to Western pressure was the Meiji Restoration of 1868, a period of rapid modernization and reform. Geography played a critical role in shaping this era. Japan's limited natural resources, particularly coal and iron, meant that the nation had to innovate quickly to compete with industrial powers like Britain and the United States. The archipelago's rugged terrain made large-scale agriculture difficult, pushing Japan to invest heavily in manufacturing and technology. The coastal cities of Tokyo, Osaka, and Yokohama became industrial hubs, leveraging their access to the ocean for trade and resources, embracing the sea for power. Japan's geography also influenced its military strategy during this time. As an island nation, Japan understood that control of the seas was essential for both defense and expansion. The Japanese Navy became a symbol of national pride, and by the early 20th century, it rivaled the major powers of the West. This naval power allowed Japan to expand its influence in the Pacific. Victories in the Sino-Japanese War, 1894-1895, and the Russo-Japanese War, 1904-1905, demonstrated Japan's ability to compete with larger empires. By the 1930s, Japan's ambition to secure resources led to the invasion of Manchuria and later the broader Pacific campaign of World War II. The challenges of overexpansion. However, Japan's geographic limitations also became a weakness. The island's lack of resources forced it to rely on aggressive territorial expansion, leading to conflicts with other powers. Japan's military campaigns in Southeast Asia and the Pacific stretched its supply lines thin and eventually provoked retaliation from the Allies during World War II. When the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, geography again played a role. Japan's dense population centers magnified the devastation, while the surrounding ocean prevented an easy escape for civilians. After the devastation of World War II, Japan faced the challenge of rebuilding its economy and society. How did its geography, once a shield, then a vulnerability, help Japan rise as an economic powerhouse and preserve its unique culture in a globalized world? Post-war resilience and economic miracles. The devastation of World War II left Japan in ruins, with its cities bombed, industries crippled, and millions displaced. Yet within a few decades, the nation transformed itself into one of the world's most advanced economies. Geography, once again, played a crucial role in Japan's post-war recovery and modernization. Island geography and post-war recovery. Japan's location in the Pacific was a double-edged sword after the war. On one hand, its isolation meant it was spared from being physically divided among Allied powers, unlike Germany or Korea. On the other hand, its lack of natural resources posed a significant challenge for rebuilding its economy. To overcome this, Japan leaned into its greatest geographical strength, its coastline. The country's strategic position along major shipping routes allowed it to develop a robust trade-based economy. Ports like Yokohama, Kobe, and Nagoya became gateways for importing raw materials and exporting manufactured goods. The United States' presence during the post-war occupation also contributed to Japan's recovery. America provided financial aid and access to international markets, helping Japan rebuild its infrastructure. Additionally, Japan's location made it a key ally for the U.S. during the Cold War, securing its position as a major player in global politics. The manufacturing boom. Japan's limited land and resources forced the nation to prioritize efficiency and innovation. With little room for large-scale agriculture or raw material production, Japan focused on industries like electronics, automobiles, and shipbuilding. Companies like Sony, Toyota, and Honda became global icons of quality and ingenuity. The nation's geography encouraged urbanization, with cities like Tokyo and Osaka becoming hubs of economic activity. The lack of space drove Japanese architects and engineers to innovate, creating compact housing, efficient transportation systems, and high-tech infrastructure. The iconic Shinkansen, or bullet train, revolutionized transportation and became a symbol of Japan's modernization. Harnessing nature's power. Japan also turned its geographic challenges into opportunities. The country's mountainous terrain and abundant rivers allowed it to develop hydroelectric power, while its position along the Pacific Ring of Fire offered potential for geothermal energy. Although natural disasters like earthquakes and typhoons remain a threat, Japan has become a global leader in disaster preparedness and resilient infrastructure. Cultural preservation amid globalization. While Japan embraced modernization, it never lost sight of its cultural heritage. The same mountains and islands that once isolated Japan continued to act as guardians of tradition. Rural areas became havens for practices like traditional farming, tea cultivation, and crafts, preserving customs that had been passed down for centuries. In urban areas, Japan found ways to blend the old and the new. Ancient temples and shrines stand alongside skyscrapers in cities like Kyoto and Tokyo, symbolizing the coexistence of tradition and innovation. Festivals, cuisine, and art forms like anime and manga have become international phenomena, showcasing Japan's ability to adapt its culture for a global audience. As Japan entered the 21st century, its geography continued to shape its challenges and opportunities. How does an island nation balance modernization with sustainability? And can its geography help it navigate the future in an increasingly interconnected world? Geography's role in Japan's future. As Japan moves through the 21st century, its geography remains both a foundation of its identity and a source of ongoing challenges. From managing its limited resources to addressing environmental concerns, Japan's future will be shaped by the same factors that defined its past. A fragile ecosystem. Japan's geographical position along the Pacific Ring of Fire places it at the mercy of nature's extremes. Earthquakes, tsunamis, typhoons, and volcanic eruptions are constant threats. The 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami, which devastated northeastern Japan and caused the Fukushima nuclear disaster, was a stark reminder of the power and unpredictability of the natural world. In response, Japan has become a global leader in disaster resilience. Innovations in earthquake-resistant architecture, early warning systems, and community preparedness have saved countless lives. Yet the challenges of rebuilding after disasters and mitigating future risks remain significant. Sustainability and innovation. Japan's geography also forces it to confront pressing environmental issues. With limited natural resources and high population density, the country has long been a pioneer in efficiency and innovation. Its leadership in green technology, such as electric vehicles, solar energy, and sustainable architecture, reflects its commitment to balancing economic growth with environmental stewardship. The mountains, rivers, and seas that once sustained Japan's agriculture and fisheries now face pressures from climate change and overuse. As global warming affects ocean temperatures and biodiversity, Japan's fishing and coastal communities are adapting to preserve their way of life. Reimagining rural Japan. While urban areas like Tokyo and Osaka continue to thrive, Japan's rural regions face challenges from depopulation and aging communities. Villages once isolated by mountains are now struggling to survive as younger generations migrate to cities. However, these same regions are finding new life through tourism and cultural preservation. Japan's geography offers a unique opportunity to showcase its natural beauty and traditions. From the snow-covered peaks of Hokkaido to the subtropical islands of Okinawa, rural Japan is becoming a destination for travelers seeking authentic experiences. Local initiatives to revitalize these areas are blending innovation with respect for tradition. Geopolitical balancing act. Japan's location on the edge of Asia continues to influence its role on the global stage. Surrounded by major powers like China, Russia, and South Korea, the country must navigate complex relationships while maintaining its sovereignty and security. As tensions rise in the Indo-Pacific region, Japan's control of strategic waterways and proximity to key shipping routes make it a critical player in global geopolitics. Its self-defense forces, constrained by Japan's pacifist constitution, are increasingly focused on protecting territorial waters and maintaining regional stability. A vision for the future. Japan's geography, which has shaped its identity for centuries, will continue to define its challenges and opportunities in the modern world. Its mountains and islands still inspire its art and traditions, while its limited land and resources push it to innovate and adapt. In an increasingly interconnected world, Japan stands as an example of how geography can shape resilience, creativity, and cultural identity. From the samurai who defended its shores to the scientists and engineers building its future, the Japanese people have consistently turned their geography into a strength. Conclusion. Japan's unique culture is inseparable from its geography. Its mountains, islands, and oceans have shielded it, challenged it, and inspired it. They have shaped its traditions, fueled its innovations, and defined its place in the world. If you enjoyed this exploration of how geography shaped Japan's culture, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more stories about the fascinating connections between geography and history. What do you think is Japan's greatest strength? Its traditions, its innovations, or its resilience? Let us know in the comments below.